Díreibh. Smurfit is the answer, but it's all right. It's Osgur. I'm very lucky. I'm an Irish speaker, born and raised here in Dublin by wonderful parents through Irish. I'm not very fond of the term Gaeltacht, which we're not going to go into tonight, you'll be happy to hear. Irish speaker is a much broader term, and there's a lot more of us than you might believe. 66% of 17 and 18-year-olds at the last census answered yes to the question, can you speak Irish? This compares to the demographics in general, or to the population in general. 40% claim that they can speak Irish, or say that they can speak Irish. I'm going to tell you a story about an idea that my friend Peadar and I had that has helped these Irish speakers meet and come together and form temporary Pop Up Gaeltacht, or temporary Irish-speaking areas. It's quite easy. Each month, we pick a pub. We create a Facebook event, essentially a meetup of Irish speakers in Dublin. But we don't just pick any pub. We pick the best pubs in Dublin. And rarely return. We prefer to move from pub to pub, from bar to bar, month to month, to pick the best bars for that month, depending on the weather, the size of the crowd, and also we try to capture as many styles and atmospheres as possible. Young and old attend, native speakers, learners, and everyone in between. And I mean everyone. Taoiseach, panhandlers, tourists, students, West Belfast rappers, Portadown golfers. At the last count, over 6,000 people have attended Pop Up Gaeltacht in Dublin since we started it 2 years ago, with hundreds and even 1,000 people packing out bars in Dublin city centre every month. We don't put anything on. There's no event in the pub. It's, there's no music, there's no offering other than what the bar themselves would offer that night. We get in touch with the bar beforehand, and we tell them we're coming. We tend not to ask permission, because sometimes they'd say no. So we don't ask permission, we turn up, we tell them that they'd do well to put on some extra bar staff. For one night only, the lingua franca in these bars, in these Gaeltacht bars, pardon the phrase, but Gaeltacht bars, English-speaking bars, changes to Irish, as if they existed just for that one night in an alternate Gaeltacht universe. Irish is heard at the bar, Irish is heard in the bathrooms, Irish is heard in the smoking sections, on the buses on the way there, in the taxis and in the chippers. Bar staff's standard of Irish improves dramatically as the evening goes on and as the bar fills up with thirsty and sometimes, dare I say it, attractive customers. Young and old appear, natives, learners, from different families, different Gaeltachti, all gathered there together for one night. Not over some kind of cultural experience, having to listen to some music that nobody particularly wants to listen to, or watch a sport that that not many people want to watch. But actually what's happening is, because by all being there in the same place for that one night, they're creating a beachhead for social, conversational, vernacular Irish to be used in a social setting. And more than that, for actually Irish to become part of the city's natural soundscape. For many people witnessing a Pop Up Gaeltacht for the first time, this is the first time that they've heard Irish used socially. This is understandable, because Irish speakers, we tend actually to switch to English because we don't want to appear rude in mixed linguistic company. So therefore, it's not surprising that people have not heard Irish used in a social setting unless they've, visited a Gaeltacht. For Pobal na Gaeilge and for daily Irish speakers, an Gaeltacht is home. Sometimes literally, but often culturally. For the majority of the 66% of 17 and 18-year-olds, an Gaeltacht probably represents 3 weeks away from the folks, a dance, and if they're lucky, maybe a kiss. But for the communities in the Gaeltacht, it is a real place with real challenges, and there are no magic solutions, as there are no magic solutions for the challenges that face rural Ireland. The language and her speakers who speak her there in Gaeltacht should not become the canaries in the coal mine of rural Ireland. But all the same, their ambitious and talented youth leave the Gaeltacht areas and come to urban centres like Dublin, where they meet urban Irish speakers in this wonderful confluence. More and more artistic, musical, cultural events are springing up in Dublin to cater for Irish speakers of all ages, all demographics, all ethnicities, all persuasions. Irish language social media, which could be actually considered a digital Gaeltacht in of itself, is a welcoming, warm, diverse place. But unless you seek out these musical events, these cultural events, or unless you seek out Irish speakers online, you might not have heard Irish used socially. Pop Up Gaeltacht provides diverse public social spaces where Irish speakers can congregate without having to switch to English, without having to have conversations about Irish, instead of conversations in Irish. For Irish learners, it provides something else. It provides an immersive social experience that they can engage with on their own terms with their friends, as they wish, with always the opportunity that surrounds them of native speakers, learners, or just total randomers. Peadar and I were inspired to start Pop Up Gaeltacht because of the negative cycle of news that surrounds the language and every time it's mentioned. It seemed to me that there was this perception that to use Gaeilge or to use Irish outside in Gaeltacht was somehow a performative act that needs to be incentivized by subsidy. It's very easy to dismiss a people that you cannot see, or in the case of Irish, that you cannot hear. We wanted to prove that urban Irish speakers existed, and we wanted to put up a bat signal for the scattered Gaels to gather. We had no idea that there was that many of us here and all over the world. Because, guys, the Irish-speaking community and the Irish community, Irish people all around the world have embraced Pop Up Gaeltacht. So much so that I now had to put together a zip file with all the hints and tips and logos and everything just to answer the hundreds of questions that we get. Over 100 independent Pop Up Gaeltachtaí have sprung up all around the world. New York. London have 3 because they can't decide where to have it. Los Angeles, Berlin, Dubai, and back again in Belfast to Kirky, Ciardha. There's not a week that goes by without me getting a phone call or an email or a text message or whatever about the next pop-up Gaeltacht that's going to be set up. There was a cheese and wine pop-up on the banks of the River Seine. There's a mobile pop-up Gaeltacht on the ding-ding buses of Hong Kong. There was a pop-up Gaeltacht in La Paz, Bolivia. Parents of younger children who can't maybe attend boozy pop-up Gaeltachts, they've formed their own pop-up Gaeltacht na Nóg, which they undertake in Marley Park when the weather permits. Pop Up Gaeltacht have become a feature of community events the length and breadth of the country, where, understandably, otherwise the English language would dominate. These events have allowed Irish speakers, learners and natives, and everything in between, as most of us are, to find a space, a social, immersive space that is novel, that is comfortable, and that is inviting. There is a desire for spaces to speak Irish as a social language in Ireland and everywhere where there's Irish people. This yearning for a positive, inclusive identity is healthy for a nation and for its people, and should be able to draw support from every strand, like be it voluntary, commercial, or state. To succeed in this national linguistic self-development, we need to protect, preserve, and develop traditional spaces where Irish is spoken. But more than that, actually not more than that, and that, as well as that, we need to explore new spaces, new environments. And we need to explore them and conquer them, not as a people, but as a language of the people. Pop Up Gaeltacht was described by the Irish language media first as a Gaeltacht ein ihe, or a one-night stand. I don't know about the one-night bit, but it's certainly a stand, because there's rarely a seat free. Agus tá fáilte ribh chách, gur míle maith.